So looking back in your career, do you find like connecting dots between how you started out, and of course the firm has like 400 lawyers, and has been doing like increasingly well in the field of practice. So do you look back and find certain milestones which the firm has had? Like, do you find certain connecting dots for the law firm?
I cannot pinpoint and say this case, this case, this case. It is a collective way of working, and we worked as a team from the beginning. And if you're asking for connecting dots, there are definitely several milestone cases which are even today quoted as one of the leading judgments.
Hmm.
But I would say that for a lawyer, these things are coming in the stride. And I don't think that I can say this case catapulted me to this level, etc., etc. I don't think it is fair to make any such statement.
So are there like certain practices with which you started out? Because I'm sure there's so many young lawyers who will be listening to this interview and who would want to, of course, understand it, that if there are certain like characteristics which they need to develop in themselves in order to pursue their career in law. So what advice would you have for them? Are there certain habits and practices which you have in yourself, which you consistently have been following since your early years?
Yeah. One thing I have followed is highest form of ethics. I still believe that the shortest distance between 2 points is still a straight line. And the easiest thing to do in life is to defend the truth. I think that should be the first and foremost thing for the lawyers to adhere to. There will be several shortcuts to succeed, but this will not stand you in long good stead for a long time.
Hmm.
That is one. Secondly, youngsters like me uh, must try to create a niche.
Mhm.
Creating a niche is very, very important. In fact, when I started the as a lawyer career, I asked the question to myself, what am I going to do? My classmates who studied law along with me are 10 years already ahead of me. I am behind them. Well, 10 years of bureaucracy means nothing as far as the court practice is concerned. So, what is it I am going to do to at least catch up with them? Then I asked the question, what lawyers are not comfortable with? And I got the answer, technology and science. Many lawyers are not very comfortable. They are very good in constitutional law, contract law, civil law, blah, blah, blah. When you're talking about the high end, how do you crack the runoff that to make a pyrolysis gasoline? From there, you make a polymer at the temperature with a catalyst, etc., etc. They find it difficult. Whereas I love it because I did mathematics along with physics and chemistry,
Okay.
and I love technology. I said, okay, let me practice that branch of law where law and technology intersect, law and science intersect, law and economics intersect, law and accounting intersect. Only there I will. I don't want to do anything else. So therefore, you created a niche, and then ultimately you work on it day in and day out, day in and day out. I'm telling you, Anisha, I have worked 18 hours, 24 hours, 72 hours without sleep continuously for many days. And that hard work is necessary for this profession. So stick to your ideals. Don't deviate from there even an inch. People may say, be practical. They're all unnecessary. You have to stick to your ideals. The ethical standards are non-compromisable. Period. There will be several temptations. You must stand up to it. Once you do that and work very hard, God is there to help you. I mean, the judges also know that this person has come fully prepared. That's what it ultimately makes.
So in your career, I mean, of course, you did say that you didn't want to pick out certain cases for the firm, but if you have to sort of pick the best arguments that you've had, that you think that you've had, are there certain matters which you think that you can talk about, like where you think that your advocacy was the best according to your opinion?
You are again goading me to quote some matters. Uh, I was very happy in doing some big matters on classification of goods and on valuation of goods. And I really enjoyed those types of matters. Got into the minutest details, including the punctuation, how it makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And those cases are really, really landmark cases.
Mm-hmm.
On many, many matters, we have argued before the Supreme Court and the High Courts and the Tribunal on valuation issues and on classification issues.
Mm-hmm.
They are really enjoyable.
Mr. Lakshmi Kumar Sitaraman, while I'm listening to you, you're a classic case of make your hobby your profession. You don't have to work, right? You sound like that. You love what you do, and the rest is a byproduct, right? And you live that. Now, if you had to make a comment on the legal profession, so what is good about the legal profession today, and what can be better? What would that be? Second, even before COVID, compliance was such a big. Over the last 5 years, promoters, CEOs, CFOs that I interact with, the most time, attention, energy went in compliance. Give us some thumb rules, or shall I say free advice on how you can, because we are a CXO audience, how can promoters, CEOs, CFOs have a playbook for compliance? Is there a playbook for compliance?
Yeah, it's a very good question. See, as the society becomes more and more complex, as the industry comes with the new technologies and new business methods, you tell me, sir, 10 years back, did you ever imagine a person not having a single car will run the biggest taxi company in the world? Did you think of it? You never thought. These are the technologies today available. And the existing law is not able to cater to these types of new business methods. Therefore, you extend the law, stretch it, and try to put the square peg in a round hole till the time legislation is amended. Unless we understand the new business methods, new technologies, and apply to the existing law, and how much you can stretch it to cover this particular portion, that is a real fun, I would put it this way. But those lawyers who do not want to understand the technology nor extend, etc., it is, are you dealing with rubber or with the steel? Rubber can be elastic. If it is steel, it is not, unless it is heated. So the problem is basically that adaptation of the lawyers community to the newer dimensions of the way the business is operating. Even today, for example, the courts are now going to have virtual courts as reality. So lawyers have to understand and adapt themselves to have the technologies to address the court through video conferences. It is not merely video conference. You and I talk now. It has got so many other things. For example, my paper briefs, my page number, the judge's page number may be the same. Mm-hmm. And I must have the same bandwidth. The technology may be the same. It is secure. They cannot do this. So many things are involved. It's not merely just talking over phone like what we're doing now. It has got huge amount of ramification. But lawyers get prepare themselves. It is necessary. That is how the modern lawyer is going to function. Earlier, you used to come and meet me in my office. Today, we are not. We are sitting in our place. I am sitting here and then discussing comfortably.
Anisha is in Bombay.
Mm-hmm. And our own office itself, if we put it this way, even before, 1 week before the government decided to go lockdown, I locked it down.
Same here.
I said, no, I cannot take the risk with my people, etc. because I know about this virus. I have studied this virus so carefully, how virulent it is and how contagious it is and how it affects the body. So I knew that. And therefore I said, no, from 8 o'clock in the night on a Monday, I decided that office will function from tomorrow from home. And we worked. Next day morning, Tuesday morning, we worked, all of us 400 plus lawyers and support staff, we're all working from home. Our IT infrastructure was robust. IT team worked on it. And there was no difficulty whatsoever. All the deliverables were going on The kinds are going on. Nothing is lost. Not a single maneuver was lost. That is necessary. That is called you. All our files are digitized. You don't require a physical file. You don't need. All our case laws are digitized. So when the internet has now simplified your life, use it to your advantage. That's it.
Mr. Lakshmi Kumaran Sitaram, Mr. Lakshmi Kumaran.
Sir, I am Lakshmi Kumaran.
Yes, that's your law firm name. I always do that to you, so thank you for pointing that out. Let me ask you at this stage, are there legal luminaries, legal professionals you look up to in our profession in India? Your contemporaries or people you work with initially. If there are, we'd like to know who these are and why do you look up to them? Why do you respect them? And amongst your contemporaries, who are the people that you look up to? They can be law firm owners, they can be GCs, they can be government legal functionary like Mr. Salve, or Mr. Rothgi, whoever, right? So I want to know who do you look up to and why?
A good
in a
question,
professional
sir.
way.
Yeah, professional way. I have the highest regard for the professionalism and the way in which they work, the way in which they prepare. As a role model for me, I would rate 4 people immediately: Mr. Parasharan, Mr. K.K. Venugopal, President Attorney General, Mr. Felin Nariman, and Soli Sorabji. These 4 people, I have worked very closely with them.
Sir, I'm very upset with you. I'm very upset. 2 Parsis, 2 South Indian, no North Indian.
Wait. I don't want you to create a wedge. You asked a question, I must answer honestly. These are as far as the judges are concerned, my first judge who influenced me mentally, Justice P.N. Bhagwati.
Of course.
Oh, what a judge. He was so alert in the courtroom and the way in which he asked questions, etc. Phenomenal. And there are several judges, I can give the names, where they are basically motivated me that how to do it, including the present judges. If I name the present judges, etc., it may look as though I am praising them, therefore I am not doing it here. But Justice Sikri, now retired, etc. They are all of a different class. And as far as the present contemporaries of my own age and other things, etc., I would definitely put Mr. Hari Salve, Arvind Datta, Abhishek Singhvi, our friend Mukul Rohtgi. These people, they work very hard. They understand the brief so well, and they can have a good court craft and all those things, etc. They are phenomenal people. I mean, name the few. There I can give not more names and all those things, etc. But there are the few names immediately I can talk.
Fantastic. So, what is the common thread across all these people? If you had to look at 3-4 qualities that were common across, of course, hard work. You have to succeed at something. I believe in the harder you work, the luckier you get. You said God is your business development person, right? But what are the 2-3 qualities that are common beyond hard work?
Yeah, that is basically the power of grasp. Osmosis.
Sure.
Osmosis, where the membrane separates two liquids with different densities, and how the liquid flow, the solute flows through the membrane. And these people whom we are talking about, they have the ability to absorb the contents of the brief like osmosis. Phenomenal. Second, memory. They can recall what happened this, etc. Third, they have a different tendency in the courtroom. I don't think they are arguing only for winning a case. They are arguing to make a law point as a ratio which will be followed by others. They help the court to develop new doctrines, new way of
context, interpreting law in context of today.
Context, and that becomes the precedent for others to follow. So these are the people who think, and that is not in the brief, it is beyond the brief. And that is what they help. And they are the people who help the courts to lay down those types of phenomenal doctrines. And that is,
Mr.
I think, a common thread I can see from them.
Mr. Lakshmi Kumaran, now you, apart from, you said you have 40 partners, 400 legal professionals. Now, what is your leadership style? We understand your technical nuances. What is Mr. Lakshmi Kumaran's leadership style? At the end of the day, you are the pivot around which the whole practice has evolved. So what is your leadership style? How do you work with your people? What are the rules you follow?
I think I follow a very simple formula, sir. Any person who joins my office as a lawyer, from a fresh graduate from the law school, he or she, I might not know, I will not know. My HR does the interview, blah, 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 and then they are selected. But the day they are selected and joining, from that time, I have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that they progress professionally every day. What all I need to do to make it happen, whether they continue it in my office, or they want to leave and start their own practice, or they want to join, etc., makes no difference to me. But so long as they are with me, I must make them better lawyer every day. And I have no other agenda. This brings it everything in the proper perspective. As far as if the joy, basically, as they say, is the joy in sharing. When you're talking about joy of sharing, what it means, it is not sharing of your wealth or only your time sharing, your knowledge sharing, wisdom. All those things you must share, you must give it to them. In fact, I would be the happiest person when I see my junior doing better than me. I have no
Fantastic.
problem whatsoever. So therefore, I don't say I'm a leader. I'm a pleader. But I want to make each one of my colleagues who are joining me become best in their profession, in the field. I want them to do something great. And I want to applaud them from a distance when they grow. I have nothing else.
Fantastic. I'll ask you my last question and let Anisha take the next 2-3. I want to ask you about Vera Business and Economy editorial platform. You'll be happy to know that we do between 30 to 35 million traffic every month on the Business World site. Apart from the magazine, BW Legal World is also growing. I want to ask you that, do you see a contraction in economy because you work with very large companies, both Indian and MNC, you work with the government, you work with the legal fraternity. Do you see a contraction? And do you have suggestions? Because you work in the revenue function, you work on the tax side. That's why this question to you. There is a talk of, not worrying about the fiscal number this year. India should print its way out of the problem. What are your views on how to revive the economy? Will there be a contraction? In my view, there will be. I'd like to know your view. And if yes, what can be done to revive the economy from a fiscal standpoint, from a tax standpoint, from a government policy standpoint?
Good question. As far as the economy is concerned, definitely it is contracted. I must tell you one thing. I am a marathon runner. I have not told you. Even today I run. I'm not able to go out because of this restriction. Otherwise, every alternate day I run about 15 kilometers or so. But one thing I noticed, when I run, if I stop in between to take some glass of water, to start again is difficult. I say it's the economy. So long as the economy is running continuously, there is a cycle going on. When you stop it and restart it, it's going to be a tremendous effort. Like what you file a cycle rickshaw puller. If he stops and then starts again, it is a
It
tremendous
takes
effort.
time to build the momentum.
Exactly. And same in the case of an aircraft. The thrust needed for it to take off to go 30,000 square feet here is the rear higher thrust. Once it reaches there, and all you require the fuel is to continuously maintain that. You don't require extra thrust. Same with the position economy. I'm going with some multiple examples. But in the economy, if you look at it, there are certain sectors are really, really difficulty. There are certain sectors they may not. For example, healthcare, for example, pharmaceuticals and all. Generally, they will do well because everybody realizes today health is important. That's very, very important. So therefore, There are certain sectors in the economy, they are not that much affected. They are already running and they will run better. But there are certain sectors of the economy, they have stopped. To restart is going to take time. But I'm an eternal optimist. I say that within a year or two, the Indian economy will come back to its original position or even do better, depending upon how the government plays its card, how the Indian people work hard on harder to get to that level. But 2021 is going to be a tough year. But 2022 and later on, we should be able to see a much brighter side of the economy.
And what should the government do on the fiscal side, on the policy side?
I would say one thing, don't do anything. Everything will be all right. Just keep quiet. Let the existing law remain as such. Be sympathetic. Look at the things in the proper manner, etc. I've already given some suggestion with regard to the how to give the fillip to the economy by way of production incentives. If you increase production, you give them the tax reliefs, etc. Those things are smaller things, etc. That is to send a signal that government cares, nothing more. And it is not something which is because of this the companies are going to do anything beyond better, etc. Basically, positive signals to go from India, from the government, and not do anything drastic to curb the interest of the people, etc. Indian economy will revive, and our entrepreneurs will do much better.
Anisha?
So, sir, I just want to learn a little bit more about your journey. Like we spoke about a lot on your perception on different like industries, on the COVID-19 situation, on the economy. But of course, you've had such a glorifying journey in your career. I want to know, like you worked for like almost a year, almost 10 years or more than that at the Indian Revenue Service. So can you tell us a little bit about that? How was your work experience there? Like what was your role there? What kind of subject matters were you involved in? And around what year did you start out? And what led to that?
First of all, I joined in 1974. I left in 85, say about 11 years. Yes. I enjoyed every day of working in my government. Not a day I hated. While I was in Chennai as assistant collector then, I was implementing the policy of the government in a fair manner. I worked very hard, 18, 20 hours a day. Every day was a new day for me. I enjoyed. I passed judicial decisions to the parties, and that's fine. But when I came to the Delhi as Undersecretary, I was in charge of the policy, fiscal policy, in charge of the taxation policy. So that is where I learned how the government policies affect the common man and the economy, how it reacts. That is a great learning for me. And I had excellent bosses during that time who taught me, who learned. I learned a lot of them from them, got inspiration, and they gave me the freedom to think, to draft legislations, draft proposals, and all these things, etc. And every day I enjoyed my stay in the government. I have no regrets. I have never left the government with any bad feelings or something, etc. It was a tough decision for me. In fact, my batchmates were appalled and they were surprised that why am I leaving? Because I was enjoying the work. And I had a good equation with my juniors, my equation with my colleagues, my equation with my seniors. Everything was perfect going on. I got my promotion on time, in fact, even ahead of time. So nothing to complain. But your inner urge feels that you are meant to do something, not merely the bureaucracy. So therefore, I listened to my inner voice. I came out. Nothing more than that.
Mr. I want to ask one more question and you can carry on. You deal a lot with GCs, the general counsels, the in-house legal heads. Have you seen a change in how GCs approach issues today versus they approached it 5 years back? And is that change for the good or bad?
I would say 5 years is maybe a small time, maybe a shorter duration. So you must talk about, say, a decade before and a decade later. I think that would be a better way of it. The The whole concern of the GCs in the past basically is like Attorney General to the Government of India. Basically, they are the conscious keeper of the company. They report to the board and then the CEO, etc., etc. And their job is basically to handle litigations and to uh, give the perspective to the companies with regard to the emerging laws. But now, 10 years down the line, there are so many changes have taken place in the law. And the changes made in the law are every day is so much. It is impossible for the GCs to keep track of what's happening in different fields of law, and they are supposed to be in charge of the entire thing. They have to handle all the litigation, manage all the litigations. They have to give the legal opinion to the clients, to the own bosses, and they ensure that the company is following the correct compliance procedures. Questions can be asked to the GC what they were doing, etc. So today their responsibilities are many fold than what it
Do
was.
they have the authority? Let me ask you the question. The reason I'm asking is we were talking to another legal luminary last week, and he said, GCs don't sit on the board. If you take America, if there is a GC of General Electric, he or she sits on the board. He tells Jack Welch or whoever the CEO is that, this is not possible, and that's it. Where the GCs are not empowered. They don't have that much authority. With America.
Sir, do you know there was a gentleman conversation?
Of course.
And he interpreted the law.
When
he dynamically interpreted. He changed the way the elections are run. And thereafter, every other election commissioner, chief election commissioner followed the same. So ultimately, it is not whether you are empowered or not. How you take up your own position and how you shine yourself.
Sure. I buy them.
So I have just two more questions to ask you. First is, of course, your firm is already at the peak of its practice. So at this stage, how do you still look forward to bigger milestones? What is the roadmap and how are you planning ahead for the next 10 years for the firm?
There are younger leaders are there. So they would take it to the higher level. All I need to do is don't stop them. I don't have to put a dampener in their spirit of growth. So I need to only encourage them, and they are so empowered and they are really good. So I don't have to worry about that.
So you're essentially saying like the team that you have built is the team that you're looking forward to take things.
They will take it.
Yes. Okay. And of course, a lot of young lawyers would be listening to this interview, would be also wanting to learn so much, will learn so much from your journey and from your experiences. So what is the message that you have for these young lawyers who are right now starting out in their career?
Concentrate on the subject which you like most. Try to be a specialist in more than one discipline. Stick to the truth and ethical standards. Work very hard. Consider this profession as a spouse which will never give you anything else. And it is a profession where you dedicate your life.